All right, let's talk about a condition that many of us think we have all figured out: diabetes. But today, we're going to look at a set of ideas that flips this whole thing on its head. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, diabetes isn't a disease of sugar at all, but a deep, profound energy crisis happening inside the body. So let's just jump right in with a pretty wild idea. What if that thing we call high blood sugar isn't the body making a mistake? What if it's actually the body's smart, intentional move to fix a much bigger, much more dangerous problem? That's the core question we're unpacking today. To get our heads around this theory, we kind of have to throw out the old biology textbook diagrams. We need to see the body's energy system in a totally new way. Imagine the body has two primary and totally opposite engines. Each one runs on its own special fuel and has its own very specific job. According to this model, our two main fuels do completely different things. On one side, you've got fat. Think of it as the body's furnace. It's the logs on the fire, generating our core heat. Then, on the other side, you have sugar. And its job, it's basically the coolant, the substance the body uses to make sure that furnace doesn't get out of control. So that first engine, it's called the marrow system. This is our hot engine, right? It's our powerhouse. It runs on fat and protein, and it's what gives us our physical strength. It's what drives healing and tissue repair, and it's responsible for keeping our core body temperature up. It is the furnace. And then you've got its polar opposite, the brain system. This is the body's cool command center. It runs exclusively on sugar, on glucose, running our whole nervous system. And this is the really critical part. The brain is super sensitive to heat. It just can't function if it gets too hot. Okay, so if you've got a hot engine and a cool command center, it kind of makes sense that things can go wrong in two totally opposite ways, right? One way is the furnace running way too hot, and the other is the furnace dying out, sending the whole body into a deep freeze. And this slide lays out those two states perfectly. Over here on the left, you see what this theory calls a heat protocol. The body temperature is high, urine is dark because the body is desperately holding on to water to cool down, and you're not peeing much. The body's fighting a fire. Now look at the right. This is what's described as a cold crisis. Body temp is dangerously low, urine is clear and you're going all the time, and you feel cold, especially your feet. According to this framework, this is what true type 1 diabetes actually is. So here's the absolute game changer in this way of thinking. High sugar in your blood, that's the body's fire extinguisher, deliberately released to cool down an overheating brain. But sugar in your urine, that's the complete opposite. It means the internal furnace has gone out, and the body is literally throwing away the coolant because it doesn't need it anymore. It's tossing out perfectly good fuel. Now, this so-called cold crisis, it's not something that just happens out of the blue. The sources we're looking at describe it as the final act in a three-part drama, a cascade of elimination, where the body is just desperately trying to survive, getting colder and colder. It all starts with salty discharge. The body's getting cooled, so it dumps water to try and conserve heat, and it loses essential salt along with it. That leads directly to step 2, bland discharge. Without salt, the body can't hold on to water anymore, so you start urinating a lot more. And finally, when the body's temperature hits a critical low, you get sugar discharge. The furnace is out, the coolant, the sugar, is now useless, so the body just gets rid of it. And this is a really important point in this theory. It's not just one thing happening. It's a specific sequence. You have to go through all three of those stages before you're in what they call a true cold crisis, a state of marrow depletion. Okay, so this all brings us to the really scary part, right? Why don't wounds heal in this state? Why can things get so bad? Well, the answer, according to these ideas, is that the body's hot engine, the marrow system, it's literally starving to death. I mean, this quote from the source material just hits you, doesn't it? When the marrow is starved, the cells are left cold and hungry. It's not about too much sugar, it's about the very building blocks of you being cold and starving, without the energy they need to even exist. So, how on earth does this happen? Well, the theory says it all starts with not having enough fat, which is the marrow system's main fuel. Without its proper fuel, the body does something drastic. It starts burning protein for heat. And here's the massive problem with that. Protein isn't just fuel, it's the actual stuff your marrow and blood are made of. By burning it for heat, the body is literally eating itself from the inside out. And the fallout from this is just devastating. Your cells, they just don't have the juice to repair themselves. Your whole internal body temperature drops, slowing everything down to a crawl. Wounds can't heal, not because of sugar, but because the cells are literally starved for energy. And of course, that creates the perfect breeding ground for infection and tissue death. All right, so if the problem is a furnace that's gone out, the solution they propose is, well, it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? You have to relight that furnace. And that means a very specific diet designed to stop the body from cannibalizing itself and finally give it the right fuel to get warm again. And here's the toolkit for doing that. First up, a warming drink with ginger, sugar, and salt to help push heat deep into the system. Next, you need to rebuild. So that's where something like a clean protein from 5-bean powder comes in. And then, and this is the big one, you need the actual fuel, fats. Things like fried foods, cheese, fatty fish, the very fuel this model says the furnace needs. And finally, you have warming spices like garlic and ginger to help the whole process along. There's also a really critical rule here: no sour or bitter foods in the evening. The logic is that those flavors are thought to have a cooling effect on the body, which would be working directly against what you're trying to do, especially overnight when the body is trying to repair itself. And the goal here isn't some abstract number on a test, it's something you can actually feel. The whole point is to keep this up until your furnace is burning so hot that your feet, the part of you furthest from the core, are consistently warm. That's the sign, according to this theory, that the marrow system is actually coming back online. So, look, whether you buy into this whole framework or not, it definitely gives you a completely different lens to look through. It changes the conversation. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other signals from our bodies, things we've been calling disease, are actually just smart, logical responses that maybe we've been misunderstanding all along?